Hey there, everybody. It's Rob from CKX, and I'm going to bring Chris on here right away. We are here to start out our next little chat. You came up with the perfect name, CON-tact. I love that because it's good to have contact with these other conventions. You know, it helps to spur, oh my God, what's the word? Excitement, you know, and gets the juices flowing, trade ideas, and I am so excited. So we're going to start out by bringing in Jay from Deepriver Geekfest. Jay, how you doing?
Amazing. I cannot wait for this conversation and for cons to be happening.
Exactly. And I bet you Kevin from ThunderCon feels the same way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
We also have Neil from Sudbury Graphicon. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Like everybody says, just happy to be here and happy to get things rolling again.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Forest City Comic Con, we have Gord. How you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. And I, of course, being the newest and newbie here, I didn't know that I could put in Forest City Comic Con in my name because I didn't think of it. So I'd like to thank you, though, for being here.
No worries. Oh, and look who's already talking. Dr. Steve-O, we were just talking about you. Hey, Robin, Chris. Hey, Jay. Thanks everybody for coming because I like we were chatting before. Oops. He even says, "Hey, Thunder Kev." Sorry, that's cool. It's cool to be able to share these ideas and thoughts and everything on how we're going to start. Because I know one of the big things that we were talking about before is what kind of restrictions do you think we're going to be facing come next year? Because, and I'm just going to throw this out to everybody. Is anybody doing a show this year?
Not a show. Trying to do some small events, but not a show. No.
Same.
Yeah.
We were looking at doing like a half show around Christmas and then kind of lead up to next year's big one.
Yeah, and Sudbury, we're in the same boat, right? We're kind of looking at smaller possibilities, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still not safe to have 3,500 people in the same room right now.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Gord, what have you got? Are you just looking at next year, or are you looking at something this year?
Right. So next year for sure, but on Saturday is Free Comic Book Day. So it will be a pale imitation of a convention in, you know what I mean? Free Comic Book Day is a wonderful event when you can have lots of people.
Yeah.
So we're going to try it, and we're in a new building. So our store facility is quite a bit bigger. You haven't been to our new store yet, Rob, have you?
No, not yet. I know the building. I drove by it many times to work.
Right. So it's the old Kellogg's factory in London, and they turned it into a mall, and it's a huge facility. So the lobby area itself is very big. So we would like to do something big, but that's probably the closest we'll get this year.
Makes sense. Oh, and there's Randy. Hey, everyone. Randy is an amazing artist. Kevin knows all about it because he's always at ThunderCon.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Randy.
And he said, who let Steve-O in here? We've been asking that question for quite some time. Now, one of the things I had asked a guest to come on because I wanted to get their side of it. But have you guys had any requests yet from anybody about next year's shows, about setting something up or something they may need?
Yes and no. I mean, not specifically about the next event next fall, like the next traditional con kind of thing. But we've actually had groups reach out to us wanting to do different cross-promotional nights. One's drive-in theater here in the Thunderberry area. They happen to own the local baseball team. So for next summer, we want to do something with the baseball team. And we've had some vendors certainly looking to plan a marketplace kind of idea as soon as possible. And that's what we're trying to focus our energy on, is figuring that out and what what and where that will be, what it'll look like.
Now, that'll be like an outdoor kind of event?
No, we expect it'll be indoor, but if we're kind of sticking to retail rules as opposed to making it a convention, I think it'll be easier to control the crowd and access, which will hopefully allow us to still get people through, but not have all that, extra panels and workshops necessarily that would make people mingle for hours, right?
Gotcha.
So more of a shopping experience than a con.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think maybe now we'll do this cheap plug. Friends of ours are putting on a little vendor show here. There we go. August 28th. It's an outdoor show, which is why I kind of asked if yours was going to be outdoors. This is in the parking lot of a restaurant here down here in Chatham called T-Bones. And they've gotten 20 plus vendors together, just like you said, Kevin. So it's more of a come in, look around for a half hour, and then gone. It's not a hangout, and it definitely not a convention.
Right. And that's great to see them doing it. We've thought about outdoor as well. There may be a portion of that, like we might have some venue space outside, but we're really trying to avoid the weather issues and get something indoor.
And that's one of the things I'm looking at right now, because I run a film festival here as well. And so we're in talks with the drive-in about doing a vendor side of it. But then the first thing that comes up is, what if it rains? And it's like, ouch. Yeah, there's no control over that whatsoever. Or
what if it snows? I mean, hey, who knows, right?
This is Ontario. That is 100% right. The one reason I asked Jason to come on is because he's from the 501st. So hopefully at some point he decides to jump in. They're very interactive. Like, you guys must know that, especially from some cosplay groups and stuff like that. They're very interactive. So I wanted to get his side of what kind of things he might need from shows to be able to go. Is there anything you guys can think of that they might be requesting?
Well, I have one guest requested to have a shield, like a plexiglass around his thing, and if it's for photo ops, he kind of wanted a shield in between, so it still looks like you're together, but not.
See, that thought did come up, and we were thinking about that if we were going to run a show this year. But the question there is, if we have 5 celebrities, are all the celebrities going to use that same shield, right? And if so, who's cleaning off the customer side, because people are constantly coming up to it? Was this thought about?
One volunteer would just be behind, whenever the one guest would leave, they'd just come down, wipe down the customer side, and then for that, each guest would have an hour. This is your hour of when you can get a photo op with this guest, and then that's it.
That's a good idea. Because then once that celebrity leaves, you can clean it all down for the next person.
Correct.
Now, the other thing there is cost, because a small piece of plexiglass for a countertop can range a couple $100s. So where would this extra cost come from?
We've thought about this a little bit, and we haven't come to a great answer, but I think it has to be a little bit of a shared cost. The vendor and us have to be sharing that responsibility, I think.
Oh, for vendor shields?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And see, those would be smaller ones on the table. Now, when it comes to, like you said, photo ops, where would that come from? Because that's obviously not a vendor, and it's much bigger.
Yeah. No idea. I mean, obviously we would be responsible for it, but we'd have to take that into account in how much we could potentially pay that guest for their appearance fee.
That's actually a good idea. But see, this would be something you could reuse every year if this becomes standard, right? So it wouldn't be, it'd be a one-time really hard hit.
Go to a local hardware store, say, hey, you want to sponsor the safety of our guests, your name will be on this, and you are bring the safety of our guests, you know, kind of thing. Be a
That-
pro to it.
Home
Yeah,
heart.
'cause
On
I
the
know that-
other hand, I mean, most of you, like our organization, we don't try to jump around our venue, you know, as much as possible. We want to stay in the same place. So maybe there's something that can be worked out with the venue as well, because they would have other groups using those facilities for similar types of events throughout the year. So maybe that's a consideration too, right?
That's actually a very good thought. And now I'll bring this one to Gord then, because I know, Gord, you're at Centennial Hall now, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
It's a smaller
Have you,
facility.
but they do a lot of events. So have you approached them yet about what next year is going to look like?
We haven't had any discussions. It's probably something we'll do in the fall because we're not until June of next year. So
you
that's,
still got time.
I mean, that's 10 months away. And, you know, as time goes by, I think all of us are hoping that the regulations will become fewer and the worries will become less.
Mm-hmm.
However, the realist in me says that perhaps I'm being a little too optimistic. So I think you're probably right. We should have that conversation.
Well, I'm the same way, because April of last year, I thought, okay, it's only going to be a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then October of last year, I thought, we're getting near the end. So right now I have a huge grain of salt in anything that I'm thinking about. So I am the same boat. I want it to be good, and it looks like it's going to be good, but it's looked good before.
Out in Alberta, they're already like peeling things. They're going to be a good test case because they're not even going to have contact tracing or whatever. So they're like, so if they don't all, you know, kill themselves off, then maybe it'll happen faster than we think, right? So
We'll be good.
yeah.
Randy,
Well,
here-
that brings up a good point, because I'm honestly less concerned about physical barriers and crowd control as I am about the question of, do we need to worry about screening for people who are vaccinated or not, right? And that's a thorny question, and I have no idea what the answer is, but that's a big one on my mind.
that was one of the questions I was going to bring up. When you have a show, is it a vaccinated only show? Or if not, how do you put it together?
I think part of the issue there is kind of like Kevin mentioned, right? Just in general, it's really kind of, it's a hot button topic, and the politics in the region, they really don't want to go anywhere near it. They don't want to come up with things like vaccine passports or proof of vaccination. And then if you go one way or the other, whether it's a proof of vaccination and a mask only, that's best for safety. But at the same point in time, I can guarantee you we're going to lose part of our followership. But really what it comes down to, like, what's our responsibility here? Are we able to host an event, slack off a little bit because we don't want to ask those questions, but then potentially be responsible for an outbreak?
Exactly. Good old Dr. Steve. He said,
Well,
have your cons in your local Walmart. A lot of people in
Yeah.
there.
I do think this is an obvious concern for any business because the policymakers are going to be the ones who make that decision for us. I don't think in a year or less. I think I think you're going to see it in the next few months. Those decisions about large events will be made on our behalf. I don't think we'll have to make a decision about whether we will be a vaccinated or an unvaccinated or whatever it's going to be, because I think they're going to make that decision for us regardless. That's
think
just
you're
my
right.
thought on it. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that we could make these decisions as a private business, but I don't. I think it's going to be out of our hands either way.
I think you're right there,
So-
Gord, because not conventions, concerts are going to start back up again, and concerts are 40,000 people into an arena. So they will kind of be the litmus test on how big events should be handled.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Steve says, vaccinated or not, everyone should still follow provincial guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
True. Fan Expo is still a go for October. I think you could maybe let the large events set the precedence. And yeah, that's going to be the other big thing, is to see what happens with Fan Expo. You know, if it turns into, like Kevin said, maybe it might be a spreader event. You know,
Like I said before, it all comes down to like Gord's saying, it's not up to us, but it comes down to whether people are going to a hospital versus whether they're getting sick. Because getting sick is not an issue. It's only when it overwhelms the healthcare system, and they'll make decisions based off of that really aren't our choice, right?
True. Peter, hey, how are you? Our resident Klingon here. From a Klingon perspective, we are going to be a ways off from being up for direct interaction with the public. Our appeal comes from being able to have close contact, including with kids. And so long as kids can't get vaccinated, it doesn't make a lot of sense. See, that is very true for them. When they came to CKX, they had a kids, battling thing.
Yeah, it was basically Batless for kids. Yeah,
there we go.
Combat. Yeah.
Yes, it was adorable. The little foam swords and everything.
Because, well, I mean, you get an organization like the 501st or the Mandalorians. They've got really well established like fundraisers, and they can go out and arrest people as part of all of that. The Klingons, we don't really have that. It's all ship specific, and every ship's a little bit different. Every ship kind of governs itself a little bit differently. So between the Crimson Dawn and Timmins, the Crimson Fox and Sudbury, and the Crimson Tempest and Whitby, where Peter is right now, we've got a really good crew that likes to interact with people, but we know when to be in character, when to break character, so we don't kind of scare people off. As a result of that, though, we have to be very mobile and very adaptive. So we just do more interaction and kind of promotion of geek culture in general, rather than necessarily doing great big fundraisers where we can maintain a safe distance from people. We kind of get right up close to people and play around with them a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons I was hoping to have Jason here, because like you said, the 501st is very established. So they're going to have guidelines that they follow countrywide.
Yeah, and that's also going to come down from Disney as well. So Disney will have a certain amount of influence on someone like the 501st, despite the fact that they're still an independent organization, but they're an independent organization that is allowed to exist with Disney's blessing, assuming certain rules are followed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff here said football and baseball is happening. But then he added, but that was even before COVID. So, and that's true. Like, and so far, from all the ball games that I've seen, like a lot of my friends have gone to these ball games in Toronto, and there hasn't been huge issues that I've noticed. So maybe we're okay. But then the doctor says, the doctor's willing to infect anyone and everyone. I'm evil.
Nothing new there.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you, doctor.
I think the biggest concern is not so much the general public, but because a big part of our audience is kids, and, they haven't had an opportunity to be vaccinated and have that protection. That's what I'm really concerned about, is that interaction, right? Sporting events, it's mostly adults, and for the most part, it's outdoor arenas. So you don't have the same close contact I think you would with a bunch of kids running around in an enclosed space.
Well, yeah. Even our Defenders Realm, we have like a 20 by 20 foot area where they have activities and all that. And you have like 50 or 60 kids at any given point crawling all over each other doing the activities.
There might be a vaccine for kids ready around Christmas time, they're saying. So
yeah,
that might render another thing moot. Have to wait and see how that works out.
Yeah, Pfizer and Moderna are both in, I think, the final testing phases. So they're taking volunteers right now. It's no major adverse effects, nothing of the sort just yet. So yeah, with any luck, by this time next year, the vaccine issue will be a moot point.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's like everything else. It's hurry up and wait. We have to kind of just wait and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So have you guys started to be able to plan? Like I know Gord said it's June, but in your head, have you already started to formulate plans on what you want to do?
If I could jump in here, we've already paid our deposit. We've got all our money laid out. We've got our guest who has been prepaid. And all of this was planned in 2019 and 2020, right? Because we have our event in June. So our event has already been planned out in detail because we already went ahead hoping that we would be able to do it. And I think it was around, what was it, February or March? What was the first lockdown? You guys help me out here.
March of 2020.
Yeah, end
So
of
it was
March.
March.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think in February we started to get signs that things were happening, and I think we contacted our guest, and he said, "Oh, if things go from bad to worse, I don't know if I'll be able to do it next year, but maybe I can." And of course, things went to worse, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm not doing anything." So. Yeah, he's set. So we have plans. So I don't know about the rest of you guys. I understand that things, are going to change because things will change, but we're ready. But we haven't. The one thing that you guys pointed out was the barrier. I think that's a good point, and we had not planned for that. We had not thought of that, and that's a good one. So thanks for having me, Rob. That was just a good thing just for that.
Well,
See?
something like barriers, for example, you're looking at almost about $120, I think is what they're selling them for up in Sudbury right now per barrier. We have about 70 booths, so you're looking almost upwards of $9,000. And I guess it's probably just because of my profession as a nurse, I know that I can't just walk up, wipe it down, and then say, okay, you next. You actually have to keep it wet for a minute before wiping it down. So you're talking about a big delay if you're doing it properly, or you're just putting on basically pig on a lipstick if you're just doing it very quickly and then saying, okay, next person. So
You mean for the celebrities?
well, in general. So even between alternate people, technically speaking, you should have to wipe it down if you're getting them in relatively close contact. So it's kind of the curse of knowing a little bit too much about how the disinfectants work.
But no, that is good. Randy posted this a bit earlier, but I missed it. Shields sounds so tacky. I understand the reasoning for the safety. But in all honesty, if you're doing it right, you won't even see that in the picture.
Right.
Because you put it this way, one person here, and you might have a line in the middle. So in your photograph, nobody will see it. So,
yeah. And as long as there's no glare, you're good.
Exactly. Randy says, what city town is each member's con in? Oh, good one. Well, I think Neil's is self-explanatory. Sudbury Graphicon. And Kevin, sort of. Randy, you already know where that one is. Thunder Bay. Jay, where is yours?
Deepriver, Ontario.
Where's Deepriver?
2 hours west of Ottawa.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just north of Pembroke if you're following the Ottawa River up from.
Oh, no way! I have relatives in Fort Collage. So
yeah, so that's 20 minutes, Jay?
Yeah, but
20 30 minutes,
yeah. I literally drive straight up to Pembroke and then over the river.
Yeah, I went to Algonquin College in Pembroke, so I'm familiar.
Well, I haven't gone there lately, so but we'll soon. Gord, where is Forest City Comic Con?
We're in London, Ontario.
Yes, right downtown.
Yeah, that's right.
And go ahead, Gord.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry, Rob. I don't want to get in your way there.
Oh no, and trust me, I didn't mean to cut you off. It sounded like you were getting ready to say something very cool.
No, you just mentioned that you hadn't been away for a while up north. I was just going to mention that I visited Chris last week because I got a chance to go to Chatham. Not necessarily just to Chatham, but I got a chance to get out of the house.
Yes.
Right, to return the favor. So.
That's the big thing. I was talking to Alfonso from Studio Comics Press yesterday, and he's like, when are you coming up? It's like, well, I guess I can soon. So I'm going to plan a road trip there so I can hit London and then go up. So it'll be nice to get out of the house. And then Randy, as you know, CKX is in Chatham. What is this one? Steve says, Gord, prepare for the worst case scenario. Masks, plexiglass, limited audience, volunteers, wiping everything down and everything safe, but hope for the best.
Yeah, I'm generally an optimist that things will go bad, but we'll do okay.
And then Randy says Deep River is how big?
The actual town is 4,500. Our first show, we had 600 people come through the door.
Nice.
So
For 4,500 people.
That's
Yeah.
really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
we had a furthest drive contest. The furthest drive was from Montreal. That was about a 5.5 hour drive.
Nice. Hey, here's Rob Thibodeau. Hey, folks.
Hey,
How
Hi,
you doing?
Rob.
Rob?
Jeff said the last fan expo I was at, I counted 4 celebrities that was using Purell after every interaction. So I can imagine celebrities' hesitations now to do cons in a post-COVID world.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, but you would just see that ramped up.
they also like money.
Yes. You know, one of the
The paychecks
stipulations
help.
I
behind
think also age too. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, if you're older, you may be less reluctant, or may be more reluctant. In your health condition. I think all that's going to play into it.
Mhm.
And I mean, we all have our own risk management
Mhm.
individually that we're all willing to take a certain amount of risk. So it depends on individual, right?
I think that's where we might come in. Like we might have an advantage then over Fan Expo, because if someone does not want to be around 30,000 people, they may come to our smaller shows where they can be around 3,000-4,000 people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it's still income, but there's less risk.
Yeah, and slightly more manageable.
Yeah.
Slightly. Yeah.
I got to call our agent and say, you start pitching this to the celebrities. That's what I want them to think.
Yeah, because I know for our convention, one of the big limiting factors, kind of COVID was almost like the perfect storm for us. We held our 2019 convention, but we had only been a not-for-profit organization of our own for 2 months by that point. So we lost our city funding, we lost our city safety net. So the fact that we managed to pull off the convention, much less break even, was really nice. But coming into 2020, I think our entire operating budget was somewhere in the vicinity of about $1,800. All of our sponsors had to lay off employees, so it wouldn't necessarily have been good business or justifiable to give larger donations to support some kind of a convention, much less the fact that we couldn't hold it to begin with. But now 2021, getting into 2022, I'm still holding on to that nest egg of about $1,800 to start a convention.
Yeah.
So, now,
You
can
need
we do it? Yes, we can do it because we've got good sponsors. They managed to make it through the pandemic. So when they are available to donate that money again, then we can still do our show. But that, for us, at least in a small city perspective, is also a limiting factor. It's how well our sponsors have handled the pandemic.
I would agree. Ours is a very similar story. We were the opposite of Gord. We actually were really prepared in 2019, beginning of 2020 for the next con, and we've kind of managed to get ourselves out of those deposits and stuff. So we're sitting without some stuff booked or confirmed, but we have luckily a little bit more than we had when we started, right? Like, which was next to zero. So we have some money to work with, and our sponsors are starting to contact us again. And, so it's looking up in that respect, but there's a lot of businesses still hurting and not sure how they can participate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one benefit you guys have is you are later in the year too. I think it's September-ish.
Yeah, we usually do September, early October at the latest. Yeah.
So, Dr. Stevel here says they have cons in the USA. We need to ask some of their attendees about their experiences. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Well, my crew, assuming everything goes well, we've actually purchased tickets to go to Star Trek Mission Chicago in April of next year. So with any luck, I'll have a better idea as to what's going on and what safety precautions they were putting into place. And we'll kind of find out from there. But one thing's for sure, I definitely bought tickets using my credit card, so I have cancellation insurance.
Very good idea. one thing I might do for our next meeting, I'm going to reach out because I know a couple showrunners in the States, and they may know other people like this kind of situation that have already had shows, and we might be able to get some of that information.
Yeah, there's been shows in the States completely successful as far as I can see. So.
Yeah. I know one of the celebrities I've been speaking with about coming up, he's been doing shows. He's actually on a show this weekend. We were supposed to talk, but he had to go. So when I talk with him next week, I should ask him. And maybe we can get a bit more insight. I don't know if the States are the exact template we want to follow, but at least you can see exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know? Randy here says, what resources can all you con leaders see yourselves sharing, or sharing plans so a celebrity could travel from one con to another? Absolutely.
Randy, if you don't mind, I'll answer that, because this has been brought up at the ThunderCon board and ops meetings before. So, hopefully this group and, other con leaders who hope to join us can share information on, agent bookings and, what are the best ways to look at travel costs and, ideally, I hope sometime down the line we'll be able to kind of have a little bit of an association where we share some promotional dollars and get, a schedule worked out where we're not crossing over each other, but we're providing a little bit of a circuit for celebrities to go through over, a 3-4 week period where, they only have to come from the UK to North America once, and then they get shuffled around, and it helps us keep that link together.
That's a brilliant idea.
Well, I think one thing that also kind of helps is that because we are smaller conventions, we're not really each other's competition. It's more like kind of going over to the small shop next door and saying, hey, how are your sales? I got a customer who might be interested in doing something with you because he can't do it with me. And we help each other out in that respect. It's
Absolutely.
Expo or ThunderCon to be my competition because we're not all on the same weekend, and therefore I'm not fighting you for resources. I'm tapping into you for help and growth.
Yeah, and on the con organizing side, I also see lots of opportunity for to train volunteers and cross train there and send them to other cons to get an experience to bring back to ours, and that's where the excitement will keep going, and we'll find the next people who will lead these.
I think, I was going to say we've actually had some kind of experience with what everybody's talking about on a local level. So in London, there's 4 comic book stores. And on Free Comic Book Day, we gave out a passport. And you would go to each store and you'd have it stamped at each store. The last store you went to, you'd be eligible for a prize at that store. Then we all cooperated together to share in the cost of the passport, to share in the cost of some of the advertising. And we would, of course, tell other people to go to the other stores. And I think the first year we had Free Comic Book Day without that, I'm just going by numbers that are off the top of my head, so don't believe these to be 100% accurate. But I think the first year we did it without anything like this, we got about 500 people. And then the next year that we had the passport, we got 1,500 people. And as we continued to do it, we reached a peak of 2,200 people. And we're just talking about people who were counted walking through the door with a volunteer counting the number of people. And believe me, they probably missed a few. And there was some returning people, but most of them were new people. So I think that the takeaway from that is if we do cooperate, I think we're going to get some return on that cooperation. And one of them might be, like some kind of passport. And where you go to visit all these cons.
Yeah.
It's Dr. Stevel's comic.
Steve was on it already.
Yeah. But it makes sense because, like Gord, you say have 500 people that are, dedicated to your store. And then, okay, I don't even know. CBC, is it still there?
No, unfortunately not. But there's Worlds Away,
Dang.
Neo Tokyo, and Heroes. Right. So those are the three other stores, and then my store, LA Mood Comics and Games. And then there's also gaming stores in town too that don't sell comics. So on Tabletop Day, we also do a crossover with the gaming stores because we're half comics, half games, whereas Heroes is pretty much half toys and half comics. So they don't do the Tabletop Day. So anyways, we do this. One year we did Settlers of Catan map, so that on the map, people would visit all the stores. And then another one was Ticket to Ride. So we would play on that for Tabletop Day. That was the same experience we had for Free Comic Book Day with the past. So anyways, we could play with those ideas some other time. If you guys think that's a good idea,
Absolutely.
I'd be more than willing to help out in that area.
Oh yeah.
Well, Randy even says it'd be great for vendors too who travel from one con to another.
Yeah.
And yeah, I see there might be a challenge, like say ThunderCon to CKX, because literally it's either a 3-hour flight or no, 2-hour flight or a 17-hour drive. So we might run into problems there, but I still know some people here that would make that travel no problem.
But just letting them know that they have the option.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a great idea. Jeff said vendors would probably want, this sounds very familiar, to take advantage of that too.
We already have a little bit of that, especially with like Gord and Trent's show and everything like that.
Yeah,
so,
down in here we do, like with Windsor, Sarnia, London, and Chatham, that because we're all within an hour of each other, right?
Yeah.
Jeff said great minds think alike, and then Steve said, or fools seldom differ. That is so true. So then with your planning next year, have you even contemplated of changing your layout yet?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Contemplated, not necessarily dove into it. Yes.
I'm with Kevin.
For us, with the amount of vendors we had, and keeping in mind about the 6 feet apart kind of thing between things, we can probably have enough space for maybe 10 more vendors, but because we're missing a booth, basically one booth in between each vendor now, so we're missing out. But if everything gets lifted, then we can add more vendors, but we're probably at capacity of what we want to have in there for safety wise.
No, it's very true. Because I was talking with someone else last night. I can't even remember who now, but we were talking about when you have vendors back to back, it's you have a curtain in between, but if they're sitting in a chair on the other side of the curtain, they're still less than a foot apart. So how would you then do that as far as layout? And I've been stewing over our map, trying to figure out exactly what we may or may not have to change.
Metal grade curtains.
Metal curtains. There we go.
Medical grade.
Oh, medical
giant masks.
They're made from that N65 or
Exactly.
N95 stuff.
4 layers of cotton.
Yeah.
Heavy weave.
See?
Yeah.
Oh man. So you guys, Neil, then have you thought about changing your layout?
For us, it's a little bit tricky because the only area in Greater Sudbury that's big enough is the downtown arena. We were talking about building an exhibition center, but that's been caught up in political debate for about the last 3 years. They want to open up a Kingsway entertainment district, but the downtown corporation is fighting that tooth and nail. So they want to build it downtown as well, but it's moving at the rate of politics. So right about now, we're looking at about 5 or 6 years, probably before we even have someone break soil. So for us, what our best option might be is if we were to expand into parking lots outside the venue, would give us a little bit more space, but that would also increase our overall capital expenses. So Kevin and ThunderCon did that for the first time, but now you have to throw in tents on top of that. You've got to worry about the weather. And then you've got to worry about increased security and traffic control issues. So yes, I've thought about it. I'm kind of plotting things through my head, but the feasibility right now is a little bit limited.
Well, when you start to venture
I
out,
had to smirk there, Neil, because you said building an exhibition place, and Thunder Bay knows that all too well. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but whatever.
Kevin, I got to say, you guys have the greatest spot because it's not one building, but it's like a hub. You know?
Yeah, no, the layout, the venue is great. I think it'll depend really on what the venue has to tell us what the restrictions are going to be, right? But we do have room on the grounds to expand if necessary. But you're looking at, yeah, you're right, additional tents and coverings and all that good stuff.
Well, even last year, no, 2019, when I was there, it was raining a couple times. And it didn't really slow down traffic.
Thankfully, it wasn't a big downpour.
No.
So you could jump from building to building. And if you got a little bit, you could hang out in the one building for a while, dry off, and then take off. But if it had been a thunderstorm, yeah, that would have been a totally different.
Although the rain was appreciated by both the Klingons and the Mandalorians, because every time it rained, we walked outside, cooled off, went back inside.
Yeah.
When you sorry.
Like you're talking venue. So just by happenstance, I come from a small town, maybe about 600 people. That's 30 minutes away from the downtown core of Sudbury. So my family kind of sits on the board that runs the community center. So yesterday they were asking me what happens. Can we reopen the community center? We've got people who want to book events. And really the direction from the government right now is, yes, you will be able to open once we get into stage 3, but you will have to follow provincial guidelines. And then once you get to the provincial guidelines, it's very, very vague and limited. So it does maintain physical distancing. You must maintain proper ventilation. You must, it's either mask, vaccines, or no entry. And it's just very complicated. And then it gets back down to that question that we kind of debated about during the last talk was, is this going to add to our insurance premiums? Are we going to have to pay a heightened rate just in case contact tracing can show that we were a hub for a super spreader event?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Carol here says two-sided booths for the vendor. And see, I thought about that too, because we have rows where we call them 5x10s, because basically you put an 8-foot table there and you have 5 foot deep. So that's your standard spot. And we would have them back to back in a row. So we would just take out the divider in the middle so they have the front and the back open. But you're still side by side. You know, you almost have to make little islands of vendors.
Yeah, as it stands right now. But like you say, they could change. And
see, that's coming from I want to say vendor. She was actually supposed to come to our show in 2020. She's an author, so we should get her here.
Yeah. I know GraphicCon, we do 3-sided cloths for all of our booths. So if it's recessed a little bit, we can kind of get away with that. But that also does add to the expenses to it. So a lot of conventions will just kind of have your back divider, but not necessarily a side divider. We did that because it just looked a little bit more professional and because it worked within our budget traditionally for the last 5 times that we hosted the convention. As to whether or not that's going to meet public health standards, on the other hand, I don't know, because usually the vendors would have the table right up along the edge of that side curtains, so that they had space behind them and it kept the crowd a little bit pushed back. It would only be the occasional people who wanted to be able to stand in front of their tables so that would push it all the way to the back.
Yeah, we had that exact same thing, because we had one where they got a 10x10 and they had tables in a horseshoe along the curtain, and then they stood in the middle.
Yeah, and then it encourages interaction. You get a little bit more amicable with people, but you reduce that distance and that physical distancing. So is it going to be mask? Is it going to be, who knows?
Right. And then if you did that, how would you put a shield up? Well,
we'll find a way.
That's right. Always find a way.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Exactly. And that's going to be the motto for every con come next year, I think.
Probably, yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for getting together again. Jason did not message me back, so he's going to get a very strongly worded message in a minute. But we will get him on here next time. Is there anybody you would like to talk to as far as that to know how to plan your show?
We talked about sharing information about agents and booking, guests and stuff, and I'd really like to hear from one of the industry agents. Like, what are the guests thinking? What is their approach to booking? Are they going to go more of the cameo route, and then it might be a little less expensive for us, but then it's just a video, right? What's that industry feel for it?
I do know the one agent that we deal with a lot, and actually I know you deal with too, Kevin, because she's the reason I went to your show. But she has talked to us about not necessarily cameo, but video conferencing in a celebrity. So you would have your room, and on the screen they would be doing a live feed. So they're actually interacting with people, but they're home and you're at the show. And she says it's a reduced cost and things like that.
Yeah, I think we probably, for budget purposes, we'll have to probably look at that for sure. But I just, if that's the general feel across the industry, or if there are pockets of guests who are just, going with the flow and doing whatever, or yeah.
But here's the question then. Could you headline a show like that? Like when we did our first big show, we had Tyler Main come in. Could we have headlined that show and have him videoed in? Would people accept that?
In this world, maybe a little bit, but definitely not beforehand. So
that is true too.
I agree with Chris. Yeah.
People are a little bit more forgiving now, I think.
It's a big thing for actors now. They'll do like personal, like $500, and they're like, "Happy birthday, Rob! It's your friend from," it's the way they make money now. So
okay,
yeah. Well, I know there's someone out. I was contacted by an organization a couple of weeks ago, and what they're trying to do is maybe have like a 1-hour video chat where it's interactive Q&A style with a host and then the guest, and then anywhere up to 3 hours afterwards, it can be one-on-one with visitors, and they'll do an actual autograph session there. So they get about 3 minutes with the star. They'll sign it, show them what it is, slap it in the mail, and then send it off to them.
And see, a buddy of mine has been doing that now, since I think May or June of last year. It's a Facebook group. It's called Virtual Asylum, and he's bringing wrestlers in to a virtual room. People would pay for their autograph. They'd come in, he'd sign it in front of them, and then they ship them all out. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of work.
Yes.
And you're relying on them on the other end to fulfill that too, right? So
yeah.
Well, especially since most of those organizations are American, so you add the extra shipping cost. Like sometimes it's more expensive to buy or pay for the shipping of a T-shirt than it is to actually buy the T-shirt.
Yeah. Well, and see, the one Rocky does, like I said, Virtual Asylum, he manages everything. So when, say Sid Vicious is going to be doing a signing, he would send all the stuff to Sid. So Sid's just got to sit there and sign stuff in front of the camera. Sid puts it in a box, mails it to Rocky, and then Rocky turns around and mails it all out from his place.
Mm.
So
could we see NFTs being something that gets sent instead?
NFTs?
Yeah, digital art that's blockchained and confirmed to be authenticated by the artist.
Oh, neat. I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a new way to, they actually take that video and it becomes something of value in of itself. And
oh, that's a brilliant idea, because it's literally the video of them signing it, so it's got to be authentic.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Carol says, I'm booking for 2022 and nothing is different so far. She has 4 appearances lined up. So, Carol, then maybe you can answer while we're talking. Are you going to be looking for like a shield or, distancing or, buckets of hand sanitizer? Like, is there anything that you would expect different from a show? Okay. Tim says, I think if it was a video guest, it would have to be a pretty big name to get a lot of interest.
There's still, as long as some interactivity though, eh? Like that's what people look for. So even if they're not, like if they're actually talking and getting responses back from that, that still has some value, right?
Yeah. 'Cause that's what we did in April. We did a virtual con.
Yeah.
And it was through Kelly, but everybody there came. They just donated a half hour of their time. We did quick interviews. People could ask questions, and it generated a lot of buzz. So maybe that is something to look forward. You know, if you have one person there and 2 video guests, possibly. I don't know. I'm spitballing right now. Things in my head. Just waiting for Carol to get back to us. But yeah, I will see if we can get an agent on here. I know one that loves to talk, and she could answer billions of questions. Probably stuff we don't even ask her.
When you mentioned Jason was part of the 501, is he like a higher up, or is he just kind of do the cosplay? Well, the dress up and go.
I think he's one of the head of this area. He's in the Windsor area.
Nice.
I think.
So I was trying to get the 501 to come to Deepriver, but hey, I guess it's a volunteer thing, and they had nobody signed up because we're too far out of anybody that dresses up, so nobody wanted to drive that far just for a volunteer thing.
I know some people in that area, but they're Mandos, so that might be something you could check on. Carol says, I'll be packing hand sanitizer and wearing a mask. I had a logo mask made. Oh, that's cool. Other than that, I have my shots and I'm happy with that. Okay. And see, you'll come across people that are okay. They're going, I'm double vaccinated. I'm wearing a mask. You know, I won't touch anybody, but, and that's it. Peter says, we had a virtual teleconference with Rod Roddenberry at Starbase India in 2019, and that was well received. They also had 2 in-person actors. And that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. If you have the mixture, I think it'll be far more received because they get to see somebody and talk to somebody really cool. James says, I don't think you'll have the turnout of numbers that you want doing it virtual.
Yeah, it wouldn't be 100% though. So
that tends to be true, but you also get a little bit more reach if it's virtual. So Sudbury Graphicon, I think I've gotten people coming as far as Thunder Bay, but it was usually vendors. But for the most part, probably about 80%, 90% of our people were all from the city of Greater Sudbury or Manitoulin Island. Whereas if it's virtual and I've got a good guest star, I can get people from Texas, from Russia. It really doesn't matter as long as I've got someone that they deem to be of value that they want to invest their time and money into.
That's absolutely true. We had that with our virtual con. We had 3 people from England that we could never afford a ticket from England for a celebrity, but we had 3 people from England and we had 4 people from Australia and India commenting to these people. So
if you got the draw,
exactly. So, oh my gosh, it's so up in the air. I don't know. Why can't things be black and white? Yeah. Anybody else you think we should hear from?
Could be actually interesting to get someone in from public health, someone who does this professionally, who might be able to comment on what is and is not going on and what's likely to happen as things progress.
But if we get someone from public health, would that be Ontario wide or would that be local?
Not necessarily. Like my contacts would probably be public health and District Sudbury, but they tend to follow all the same policies, but it'll be locally tweaked a little bit because you still have to follow the minimum, which is the federal standard and then the provincial standard from there, and then local regions can impose slight alterations. So when lockdown was lifted the second time, it was kept in Sudbury for about an extra 2 weeks until our spike went down. And then North Bay, I think, was kept in lockdown for probably a month longer than everyone else because their numbers were higher.
And see, that's kind of why I wondered if we got somebody from Chatham, like our numbers, we have like 6 people active right now. Like our numbers are really low, luckily, knock on wood. Yeah. So I don't know if what we would describe would be the same as what everybody else would be describing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I'll see if I can find someone for that. And Neil, you and I'll chat. Maybe we to bang our heads together. We can come up with someone that can give a general idea for the province.
I might have a couple of people. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anybody else think anybody else we could talk to?
Everybody wants.
What's that?
I think we're good.
Yeah. We'll figure out more people as we go.
Not everything has to be decided here, right? So
No. It's all or nothing. That's it. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing this. It's always a blast just chatting with you, but to do these kind of topics, Let me see.
Thank you.
Any last comments?
Yeah, I think Kevin was mentioning that we should be sharing resources. Perhaps we should start a Facebook group or whatever, some other type of social sharing platform. Just an idea. I know there's the comic and game retailers group on Facebook, and that does really well for us as a store, and it has provided a lot of interesting ideas. So I don't know. What do you think, Rob? A Facebook group for small conventions?
I think that's a good idea because I know literally everybody I messaged on Facebook, so I know we're all on there.
Right.
So if you guys are up for it, I'll throw together a little group and we can all chat around in.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Things that might not occur to you in one of these hour-long things, right? So,
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, I think there was one last comment. Peter said virtual performers might be a way to go too. Klingon Pop Warrior has done a few digital concerts this year.
Nice.
She puts on a good show.
Randy said Facebook group name CON-tact, like Rob mentioned. No, that's Chris's. Chris came up with that name.
I'll let it loose.
And then Randy said, thanks, guys. Yeah, thank you guys so much. I guess that's it for now then. Everybody stay tuned because I know we're going to have more coming up. And we'll be back to talk more soon.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you, everybody.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll see you guys in person one day.
Yes.
Something soon I come